Alright, EA Ermor turned 38, starting out with a Dire Portent, always good news, but this is just Mother Oak, so that's 10 Nature Gems a turn for Tianqi, who doesn't really border us, so as Dire Portents go, that is not too bad. We bring in a Naiad, which is a powerful water and nature caster, but who struggles to leave the province that they're summoned in. They have homesickness, so they start to die if they move out, so a useful mage, but a little limited. Nonetheless, we will be able to offload a lot of our water and nature magic needs onto that caster. We did some site searching but missed. We took a province from the elves, and there were no elves that didn't hang out, so no real losses. We do lose one infantry, but that's okay. We probably recruited too many of those. And then quite a few special events. So we found a treasure. It was guarded by a monster, so one of our commanders is going to go through an assassination attempt. And unfortunately, it is, one of our Augur Elders. Luckily, at least, he is twice-born. He's up against this Cave Drake, which isn't like the most dangerous monster, but can be dangerous. Luckily, we do have like some enchantment research, right? So we're able to make some skeletons, and that is one of the most powerful things that you can do in an assassination battle. And then that's Frighten, actually, I think helps us out, and it looks like the morale breaks on that Cave Drake, and we actually come away with this. So that's nice. We get a couple random items, and we don't lose our mage. We do like that. And then, a few people left that didn't believe in us. That's fine. The people that are left believe in us more. There's an event in Agartha, a brigand's attack. This is no longer our problem, so that's good, I guess. And then we get some gold, so this is definitely good. Worldwide event, Throne of Misfortune is spreading. Clearly it hasn't hit us quite yet, but this could be a little scary since we're at Misfortune 2 from our scales, and that could push us to Misfortune 3 in some places. And then, of course, we lose Agartha. Anytime you move off of a fortification that an enemy owns, they get to take it back. And I will see you guys after the jump. Alright, so this is the situation and what we're doing about it. We're continuing to withdraw from Agartha. Here's the brigands. So that is unfortunate for them. It'll probably take them a few turns, to clean out all of our flags here. We just went ahead and we just abandoned these troops. We don't really have the leadership to pull them out. Doing a little bit of site searching here, but the main thing, two main things. So we're going to gather up kind of an army, some caster support, like mostly just fire elementals with, our legionaries and some of our sacreds. Obviously, we have, a lot fewer sacreds than we would like, since we have been losing them in the caves of Agartha, and they're just sort of set up in like an anti-bird box sort of formation because the other big thing is there are a ton of birds here. So this has been cracked. This is Arcocephali. It is looking like Abyssia is on their way out. We have our assassin here who might just start assassinating birds, if this is lost. But we will get to see the assault. So that's the main reason that they're there. Like I said, we may focus first on TNN, but it really kind of depends. I hadn't talked with the Kalon player yet at this point, but this probably would be a good moment to attack. We know from talking, with our ally Abyssia that they do have stuff inside of Arcocephali, so there will probably be losses in this assault, and that's part of why we're massing a force right next door, because maybe we just jump in immediately after they've been weakened. Otherwise, doing some more recruitment of our legionary infantry, recruiting some scouts here, which is a bit sad, although we will need probably some gem carriers. We have a gem carrier, so maybe money issues, we could always use more money. And then at the capital, an Augur Elder, our sacreds, of course, some of the cheaper leves, and then Augur recruitment, still a few more slingers to round things out. I do think they'll be useful against the elves and the birds. And then we're recruiting some more adepts of the Golden Order. We do have one. Unfortunately, he randomed into fire, which is far and away the least exciting random for us. But, that's how it goes. Otherwise, our Pretender is forging us an Astral Booster, which will be useful in a variety of situations for us later on, as we are a fairly significant astral power, though, like I said, with somewhat limited high-level astral access. And then the other big thing is the war between Niflheim and Yomi is ongoing. So it's not looking great for Yomi. This is their capital here. We don't really know exactly what's going on top of it, but he's lost some of his cap circle here to Niflheim raiding. Niflheim is on top of this fort, although it's not cracked. However, Yomi is sitting on top of this fort, and it's cracked, so, we're moving our scout in there to see a potential storm, so, maybe Yomi is going to be able to battle back, but, certainly they're on the back foot, they're on the defensive, so we're going to continue. Yeah, here's some rating down here. So yeah, they're not done, but yeah, we'll continue to keep an eye on this, and hopefully they'll keep Niflheim busy while, we handle other matters. And I think that covers turn 38. All right, EA Ermor, turn 39. We finished research in construction 5, moving on to 6 for our lanterns, among other things, no doubt. We miss with some remote site searching for water. We find a death site. This is very nice. It's right on the border with Agartha. And then we miss with a site search, as happens, and we take this province, which is our province, back from TNN. No real resistance here. But speaking of resistance, we see that Abyssia is riding out in Arcocephaly. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Looks like they're more or less bringing everything to bear. They have a ton of their sacreds out front. Looks like their god must be present since they're already blessed. Yeah, here he is. He's been loaded up with a ton of gems, mostly air and earth, pretty high air, decently high earth. Yeah, this is going to be a scary caster. Got a squad of Abyssian infantry back here to catch any flying shenanigans. He's got some of these mistbred who are probably going to go in and try to cause some havoc among Caelim's stuff. His mages are fairly spread out with not a ton of bodyguards, so that is definitely scary, especially against the birds. Although that said, Abyssia does kind of have problems. It looks like he's trying to do a decent amount of blood magic here, and unfortunately, because all the Abyssians have this heat aura, they have a tendency to set blood slaves on fire, and that's probably worse if everybody's stacked together on top of each other. So yeah, it can be a little challenging to use blood as Abyssia, but it definitely looks like we're gonna see some blood casting, as well as of course plenty of fire casting. So yeah, some fire elementals I would expect, or maybe some fire evocations. Lots of gems, a lot of gems on these mages. So if this is going to be a final stand, it looks like it's going to be a fairly epic one. And then speaking of why it might be a final stand, quite a few birds over here with a lot of caster support. These are Eagle Kings in here, who are slow to recruit, pretty expensive capital only mages, but they are air 4, and yeah, it looks like they've been loaded up with a lot of air gems, and then also a lot of area seraphs here. No air gems on the seraphs, it looks like. Yeah, more Eagle Kings with more air gems. This is a ton of caster support for Caelim. So yeah, at this point, probably air elementals or evocations like Thunderstrike, and yeah, let's have a look. So they're summoning storm power, so there should be a storm coming up soon. Yeah, so some of Abyssia's flyers do manage to make it in. Yeah, there's the Thunderstrikes and the lightning bolts. Now that's pretty nasty, and yeah, we have a bunch of imp summoning from Abyssia, which is definitely a good use of low level blood, and probably causing some friendly fire, right, as the casters try to Thunderstrike the imps, and especially with the storm up, their precision is going to be relatively low. I don't think these Abyssians have much, if any, shock resistance. No, actually, I stand corrected. They have 15 shock resistance. So yeah, full shock resistance, so it's going to be a little harder to kill these guys with lightning damage than normal. Burning ones, of course, are very dangerous, so once they close into melee, that's going to be really bad news for the birds. A lot of birds cannot fly in the storm. Not all of them have storm flyer. And the other nice thing for the Abyssians is that since they don't pack in very well, right, they're just 1 to a square with their bad formation fighter, they take less damage, right, when any one individual gets thunderstruck. So a little harder to kill with evocations. Looks like some of them... I was going to say are routing, but it looks like these guys are berserk, so I have no idea where they're headed. Maybe there's stuff in the back they feel they need to kill. Here comes, so it looks like we have lesser fire elementals, which are still going to be dangerous. They're not going to love the thunder strikes. And the thing about thunder strike spam is that it's actually pretty fatiguing. So, we can see most of Caelim's casters, even the ones with really high air, more than you need for Thunderstrike, they are pretty asleep at this point, and so it's pretty much just birds that stand between them and the burning ones, not to mention the fire elementals. Eagle Kings do have a little bit of resistance to fire, but I don't think it's going to be enough, and then of course, they don't like getting beaten on with flails either, so still some Thunderstrikes coming out, and definitely Abyssia's taking a lot of losses, and we don't really know yeah, it looks like their backline is still doing fine, like another wave of lesser fire elementals. Whatever birds did manage to fly back there probably died to fire elementals in, fire evocations. And so, yeah, and then here comes a wave of imps, so Storm is down, and I would say that Abyssea is going to come away with this fairly handily, though, not without loss. Definitely demonstrates that, Thunderstrike spam is useful, but it's not always going to win, and I think in that case, not a great use of it, because Burning Ones, spread out so well. So there were a few mage losses for Abyssea. He loses 3 Warlock Apprentices, who are not expensive, but I think they're cap only, so if that's the case, that's definitely a bit sad, but still, not too bad. Burning Ones, losing 11, that does hurt a little bit, but considering, what they killed, totally worth it, and then otherwise, the chaff he doesn't really care about too much. On Kalem's side, it's pretty catastrophic, right? He loses 13 Area Seraphs, who aren't crazy expensive, but aren't cheap either, and that's a lot of fort turns to be losing. They are at least, not slow to recruit and recruit anywhere, but still, that's a ton of mages to be losing. Even worse, he loses 9 Eagle Kings, which has got to be fairly close to his recruitment for the game so far. And these guys are incredibly expensive, and, hard to bring in, and really almost a total wipe. Like some bird chaff does escape, a few casters do escape, but this is a huge turnaround for Abyssea, and really good news for them. For us, it's a bit more of a mixed bag. So we have a battle here between Niflheim and Yomi, and that's mostly because, it's good that our ally is doing well, but we just kind of rejiggered our diplomacy under the assumption that they would be dying and we would need to reorient to fight against TNN and Kalem, and now that is looking like it's not going to be the case. So here we have Quagmire being cast by Niflheim. This is looking like probably just going to be a bunch of skeletons combined with a bit of a fatigue play, just, to prevent these fairly dangerous Oni from closing into melee. And we have one Dione back here with kind of some sad kidding, like possibly he just picked this up, but of course, if you don't give him a weapon, their weapon's two-handed, so this is a punching Dione. We also have a Prophet here, so that's cool. He's also a hero. Iron Will, nice, some extra magic resistance, never goes amiss. Looks like he's just kind of in caster mode. And then, there's going to be a bunch of skeletons. So can these demons cut through a ton of skeletons? And, their fatigue doesn't really look like it's going up too much. A lot of them are in ghost form, and they probably have, no encumbrance in the spirit form. I'm not really sure how that stacks up with Quagmire, but it doesn't really look like Quagmire is doing all that much. That said, a bunch of skeleton spam is fairly powerful, and here's a regenerating Jarl who is asleep, but they're kind of struggling to kill and is keeping him off the casters. So that does work out for Niflheim, but perhaps a bit closer, than they would have liked. It doesn't really seem like the Dione, our punching fellow, got up to too much, so it works out for Niflheim. Let's just double check that is indeed the case. No losses, and not actually heavy losses for Yomi, right? All their mages escape, along with the majority, of their Oni, but being scattered like that does really hurt, so that's definitely still a win for Niflheim, and I will catch you guys after the jump. Alright, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. Like I said, a bit of an awkward turn for us. I think Abyssea also turned around an attack on his capital, or at least there was a few raids or battles that he won. So now it's looking like, okay, we're not going to have to fight Kalem, and it's kind of like, well, what do we do now? And at the time, the obvious cutthroat move to me is to immediately end the non-aggression pact that we just signed with Agartha, which is totally valid. I don't think people love it. I think there's a bit of an expectation that if you sign a non-aggression pact, you're not just going to immediately turn around and cancel it. But at the same time, the situation can shift really quickly. So I don't think there would have been anything wrong with that. But, I was already busy trying to eat Agartha. I just didn't feel great about it. In retrospect, probably should have just done it. But I didn't. We also still have an enemy, right, in TNN, and we're gonna give this province up to Agartha as part of the peace deal. So we only have a 1 province border, and we have to do this weird reach around if we go after TNN, and it's just gonna leave us with some really weird territory. But I figured, it's okay, like we need to deal with Tian'an anyway. That'll help take pressure off of our ally in Abysia, and it'll also position us, like if we take Tian'an's capital, we're not like that far away from Agartha, right? I mean, at least like as a crow flies. This terrain is fairly difficult to move through around here, but that hadn't really quite sunk in yet at this point. So I was like, yeah, we're like not that far away from Agartha. So it'll just be like a quick march over to Agartha. Yeah, that'll give them time to rebuild, but I think realistically, as long as we don't fail hard against Tian'an, right, they just managed to get their second, fort up in the form of a palisade. They still haven't even managed to raid back and retake like the agreed upon land. So we brought them right down to the brink, and like, yeah, we will be able to take them on later, like I said, assuming we don't do poorly against Tian'an. The other danger is that they get eaten by someone else, because they're obviously like in a pretty weak state, and that is always interesting for neighbors. So we know at least that like Ulm is pretty busy. They're fighting in a 2v1, and that looks to be like their main southern neighbor, because we know that like Helheim was taken by Ulm. So the other question is like, well, like Niflheim might try to jump in and grab them, but at least for the moment, right, Niflheim is fairly busy, fairly far away, so we should have a little bit of time, to actually get in there and take it. But like I said, in retrospect, I think probably the right move would have been to just cancel immediately, and I kind of knew that at the time, but I just didn't want to but cancel my agreement so quickly on having just made it. The other cutthroat thing that didn't even occur to me at the time, but we could have ended our non-aggression pact with Abysia. We know that these two just fought a really nasty battle against each other. And in a lot of ways, like some of this territory, just the terrain is a little nicer for us, and there's a throne right here, and like, maybe we could pick up two capitals since they're both recently exhausted. On the other hand, that's incredibly greedy. We've taken a lot of losses, and that would leave us with, instead of like one friend, somebody that's neutral, and like an enemy and another sort of enemy, we'd have like 4 enemies basically, because probably if we did that, Agartha would cancel their nap with us and jump in against us. So there's an argument to be said for being super cutthroat and going in against these two nations who just fought a really nasty battle against each other. On the other hand, we've taken a lot of losses. We're not in a great place to take advantage of something like that, and we have other enemies. So for now, we're just going to hang out, right? We're going to move some of our mages home, because I don't think we're really going to need the fire elemental support, and would prefer not to spend all these fire gems. Do a little bit of site searching, patrol, preach. This has death scales in it because Abysia really they went heavy into the high bless, which is pretty common for Abysia. Abysia gets half the benefit of growth and half the penalty of death scales, so it's a little easier for them to go death, but it's still pretty painful. Regardless, we would prefer to see our growth 3 scales in this very valuable province. So we'll probably fortify this, right, if we are indeed planning on jumping in against Tian'an. It would be nice to have a relatively secure retreat route, and this is also a good place to do patrolling. He's been slipping elven groups into our territory. This is probably, where they're coming through. So yeah, that's kind of the plan there. I think overall probably moving a little too slowly. On the other hand, like we don't really know too much about Tian'an in terms of like, well, what's the research? We've seen a few raiding parties. So we're also moving our twice-born augur elders, right? And so they're just going to make skeletons, and we're going to send them in ahead of everybody, to kind of do some raiding and get some information. And we're also bringing up some more infantry. So like we're still working. We're just coming off of a relatively nasty loss. Like some of this is our remains. So while there's an argument for speed, there's definitely reasons that we're taking a second to reorganize everything. Recruitment, of course, getting Equite, some more legionaries, augur elders, like starting to work in, I think, more augur elders. Still plenty of augurs coming out. Yeah, here's another augur elder. So full mage recruitment. Let's see. Yeah, we're getting a throne mage here, so that's nice. Money-wise, we're in decent shape. We're getting our dwarven hammers online with our pretender. Various site searching going on. We're going to get our lizard shaman up relatively soon for some increased nature access and some deeper nature access in battle in the form of communions. And yeah, I think that more or less covers turn 39.